I'm a selfish prick. I'm a cynical bastard. I'm a selfish bastard, and I love that.
He's also an accused rapist. So what does Leah Remini see in Paul Haggis?
You do get paid and you do get attention for doing this stuff.
I don't work for free. I mean, I'm just a crappy has-been actress who's trying to make $1 off my church.
It's said that birds of a feather flock together. That's certainly true of Leah Remini, an out-of-work sitcom actress kicked out of the Church of Scientology for immoral and antisocial conduct. And her friends, a covey of liars, lawbreakers, and assailants she calls her people, and champions in her hate show on cable channel A&E.
How are you? Good to see you.
One of them, scriptwriter Paul Haggis.
Understand that this is a man who for 30 years, admittedly, pretended to be something and someone he was not.
Haggis's late sister Kathy was his writing partner for 12 years. And she knew Paul and his distant relationship to the church better than anyone.
He just hung around the fringes in order to be able to take advantage of the celebrities who are part of Scientology, the real celebrities, get to know them and advance his career. That's what his involvement always was about in Scientology.
And once Paul had cashed in on those industry connections, he orchestrated his sham resignation from a church few, if any, knew he had ever belonged to. Exploiting the prominent gay rights movement, he contrived a controversy centered on a proposition opposing same-sex marriage. He fraudulently denounced the church for not taking a political stand against the referendum. Yet he knew full well that the church could not engage in political issues, and that it welcomes anyone of any orientation, race, or creed. But for Paul Haggis, the end justified the means if it would put his name in lights. Long before Leah Remini dredged Haggis up for her show, she knew the real story from this man. Marty Rathbun, an anti-Scientologist expelled from the church who revealed his role in staging Haggis's phony resignation.
Paul Haggis consulted with me every step of the way on how he should position this and how he should do this. It's important for his public image because he rode this sort of pro-gay rights wave as a PR vehicle and as to paint himself as heroic.
Rathbun disclosed that Paul sent him directions to commit no less than 8 misrepresentations of fact to media in an attempt to bamboozle them into buying his phony narrative about himself.
And the reason why I covered all this business on the foundation of the homosexuality and the emphasis, this big emphasis on Haggis being so suddenly, he's like that inspector in Casablanca. I'm shocked and dismayed. I mean, that's being communicated all through here. This is false.
Cornered by these revelations, Haggis was forced to admit he lied. And all the while, where was his shock and outrage about the Catholic Church, with which he now affiliated, and which, unlike Scientology, did take a stance against same-sex marriage? To fathom the depths of Haggis's hypocrisy, just 3 months after his so-called resignation, he traveled to earthquake-stricken Haiti, where he took photo ops with a Catholic charity, only to then freeload his return flight by covertly taking a seat on the Church of Scientology's privately chartered plane for its volunteer minister relief workers. And behind the two faces of Paul Haggis, the facts get even more disturbing.
Paul is abusive. And there was a time when he tried to get physically abusive with me. I hear him come running up behind me. I am thrown against the door and kicked from behind. And I couldn't believe it. He was abusive to his wife. He used to get into physical fights with her and lock her in the closet, lock her in the bathroom.
Not surprisingly, that wife divorced him. His next wife did too, after Haggis admitted he had cheated on her with dozens of women, including trysts with unprotected sex. That's not to mention Leah Remini's leading man was a client of the notorious Ashley Madison online hookup service. Paul's sister, who found his invoices in a subscriber database leak in 2015, wrote of her discovery that it is still just the tip of that Titanic-size iceberg we have yet to view. The first forewarning of that iceberg was Haggis's courtship of people like this, who he thought might help him advance his career. Yes, that Harvey Weinstein. 1 month after Haggis took the stage on Leah's show, Weinstein went down in a blizzard of sexual abuse accusations. Haggis was quick to proclaim that Hollywood is not an innocent place and never has been. Most of this behavior has been aimed at women. Harvey Weinstein, he declared, was a predator, and a predator is a predator. Paul Haggis should know. Less than 2 months later, Haley Breest, a young publicist outraged by Haggis's hypocrisy, came forward with explosive allegations against him of assault and rape. Haggis's response? He slapped a lawsuit on Breest to try to silence her. But he made not a mention of what happened on the night of January 31st, 2013. According to court documents, it began after a film premiere in New York City when Haggis insisted that Breest, then 26 years old, come to his Manhattan apartment for a drink. Intimidated by Haggis and fearing he could influence her career, she relented. Once inside, Haggis began forceful sexual advances. It seemed that the more Breest said no, the more excited he became, and he proceeded to violently rip off her tights as she struggled to push him off. Haggis forced the terrified woman to give him oral sex. Then he continued his aggressive sexual assault, and finally, he raped her. In defense of Breest and her lawsuit, 3 more women broke their silence about Paul Haggis.
A civil lawsuit has been filed accusing Paul Haggis of rape.
The news has prompted 3 additional women to come forward with their own sexual misconduct accusations.
Associated Press published accounts from 3 women alleging sexual misconduct.
One of the 3 new women accusing Haggis have accused him of rape.
Rushing to Haggis's defense was Leah Remini and co-host Mike Render, a notorious wife-beater. Holding Haggis up as truly a gentleman, they accused the victims of lying. Enough was enough for one of the women, who excoriated Remini for her baseless attempts to silence victims of sexual abuse and rape. Not that it matters to Leah Remini, whose own motives are no secret.
I mean, I'm just a crappy has-been actress who's trying to make $1 off my church.
And behind that dollar is A&E, showrunner Miles Reif, producers Eli Holtzman and Aaron Sedman, both former assistants to Haggis's pal Harvey Weinstein, and Paul Bucheri, Rob Chernow, and Elaine Fontaine Bryant, the corporate bosses who greenlit Remini's hate show. Before production even began, the church provided ample documentation on Remini's sources, including Paul Haggis, but A&E ignored it. They'll stand by Leah Remini and what she sees in a sexual predator and an accused rapist, a gentleman, a victim, a friend, one of her people who can help them all profit from bigotry and hate.